We're going to stay on all matters related to Metal Gear Solid because at the recent Xbox showcase, there was our first more in-depth look, quote unquote, in-engine look, which basically means anything at this point, at Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta. And we got this question from very professional Dodo. With the release of the latest quote-unquote in-engine trailer for Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, I was immediately struck by the sameness of the graphics. Looking back at the original MGS3, it's clear that the game had a visual identity that made it almost immediately recognisable. The remaster looks a bit like a run-of-the-mill UE5 title, albeit a pretty one. Do you think the shift for UE5 in the AAA space will generate visually similar results, with studios pursuing photorealism at all costs using Nanite and Lumen, or do you believe there will be a push for a bolder art direction to differentiate from the crowd? John, I'm going to come to you first on this one, but I guess my takeaway from that trailer was that it looked like the original game, but with a Lumen and Nanite wrapper. And there was some severe discontinuities there in terms of the quality of the visuals and, say, the way the animation basically seemed to look a bit weird. I don't know what you think about that. There was something odd about it for sure.
Yeah, before even commenting on that, I do want to note that this push towards realism doesn't have to mean you sacrifice style. And I think Alan Wake 2 that we talked about, perfect example of this. This game is super stylized and gorgeous art direction, but it's obviously going for extreme realism as well. It can be done, right? It's this just being Unreal Engine 5 and pushing these new technologies doesn't mean you have to sacrifice that aspect of the visuals.
Easily.
This here is a weird one because on the face of it, like the detail levels and everything, it actually looks pretty good. But, and I don't know, man, this is I don't know how you would do this, right? This is a tough one
I have
to do.
an idea.
But, okay.
Okay, well, everyone just, like, the original game's really yellow, right? You could just post-process it to make it more yellow. If they wanted to get that yellow, you could change the sky color to be more yellow, so Lumen just propagates that yellow in the scene anyway. I think there's ways to do it. Like, right now, the sky color is blue, so all the shadows start getting a bit blue.
Actually...
I think it is literally, this could be color graded to look a lot more like the original with everything that we're seeing right here. I also like the look of that original game. It is very of the era. Like, don't forget, there was like,
sure.
I'm sorry, Oliver. Let me hit the button. The piss filter era. Like the original game is good looking, but it also is like very, color corrected and like yellow fog in the distance.
To be fair, it's not always yellow though, right? Like,
yeah, I know, but like that's when people point out the differences. Right. It's mainly about color tone.
And that's the thing. That game has, each section of that game has its own very specific color tone. And it follows that throughout the game to give it a unique look. And I think your point about the lighting with Lumen is really interesting because it reminds me actually of Quake 2 RTX, where it's really neat to choose the Earth-style sky with the blue sky and everything, and it looks awesome. But it also doesn't really look like Quake 2 anymore, right? It completely changes the tone, which is why they provide that original Strogg-colored sky, which works with the path tracing in that case to create a much more accurate and realistic, less realistic, but more accurate to the original game kind of look. And I think that's very possible here as well. But there's just, whenever they show the close-ups of Snake's model, it just something about the way the models look seems off. I don't know. It's just everything about it. It does feel kind of tech demo-y in a weird way. And it's lacking something. Man, it's almost hard to put into words, but like when you see the original and you see this, you can see what they're going for, but this feels, I'm going to say it, this has hire this man Nintendo energy all over it, you know, where it's like you put Mario in like a realistic field and running around kind of thing. Like it's that kind of feel, a little bit like that. Like it's better than that, but it's still, that's kind of what it reminds.
Is it though?
It is, because like
it does look like one of those. It's very reminiscent of taking Mario and putting him in an Unreal Engine demo. That's you know, there are some bits that look pretty good, I think, but ultimately it just looks weird. There's a visual discontinuity between the way it looks and the way it moves, in my opinion. maybe it's simply because the fact that it's got to play like the original,
or
maybe
does it? We don't know yet.
But does it? Yes.
We don't know that yet.
I mean, one of the things about the original games, depending upon, I mean, there's some analog movement there, but also Snake's pretty nimble. He can turn really quickly, and that would look really awkward, I think, with modern visuals, like some of the turning animations.
That's the thing. Those Metal Gear games have very, I would say, granular animation. Actually, there's a lot of movements in there, but it's designed to be very gamey as well. So things are very snappy and quick, and that helps it feel great. And it looked good within the stylistic visuals of that era, but I think when you translate that to more photorealism, it starts to look strange. And I don't think they're necessarily doing the exact same animations here either, but it does kind of have that feel. It's a weird mismatch, and I think this is just you know what, I'm still interested in playing it, and I'm curious about what they're doing, and I would say that whoever's working on this has been given an unbelievably difficult job. I don't think there's any world where you make this and everyone is happy. I think it's one of the most beloved games of all time, I'd say. People love Metal Gear Solid 3. I love Metal Gear Solid 3. Trying to remake this stuff, it's so hard. It's so hard. And, but I still hope it comes away a little bit. It almost reminds me of, in a different way, when Blue Point remade Shadow of the Colossus and Demon's Souls, there were people that weren't happy with the art direction. And I would say I actually really liked what they did with the art direction in those games. I think it looks pretty good. I don't think this is on that level yet, but you're always going to have people that aren't happy with those choices made. But I think there are still things they could do here to make this look a little bit more authentic, if you will.
Yeah.
And I hope they find a way to make that happen.
The problem, I think, is that you've got to reestablish a relationship with the gamer, right? When you produce something like this. The way to do that was to do the Master Collection right. Okay? And basically, with what they've done with the Master Collection, which is basically the barest minimum way to get these games running on a modern platform, it basically sours the whole enterprise right from the off. It lowers expectations for the new game. And obviously there's things here that do look really, really impressive, right? But based on the way they've handled the franchise in bringing it back, it basically just sets expectations at the lowest possible level. Yeah. And it's just really disappointing that what that basically has meant is that we can't really look forward to whatever this turns out to be, simply because, with their first example of how they've, tried to bring the franchise to modern systems, it's fallen flat on its face. It's a disaster. But, I guess you just have to wait and see how the game sort of pans out. It really did grind my gears. I think, we need to bring an end to in-engine trailers at this point. It just really irks me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the Forza Motorsport experience. Maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But, show us the game, for God's sake.
Yeah, it's show someone playing it. Yeah, my God.
Yes, just show us the game. Don't make up stuff if you can't deliver. Maybe you can deliver with this, but...
And I do think it's okay to show stuff that's very work in progress as well.
Please do.
I do think the audience, I don't think they give people enough credit on that stuff. And I think especially if you go from something that looks a little bit rough initially and then it gets better as it goes on, that actually gets picked up in a positive way where people are like, oh, they enhanced it. They made it better. And by the time it releases, there's excitement around that versus the opposite where you show something that looks outstanding and then it releases and it looks worse. That never goes over well. But it's tricky because you need to get the marketing going, and maybe there's just an argument that this stuff shouldn't be shown until it's much closer to being ready and finished.